This video is for the folks who don't feel like they are effective. Like they moving through the world are sort of just this like general blah of a thing who doesn't actually change anything around them, that they don't have much power. Now, I'm not saying all these things to like make you sit with the fact that that's what you already believe. I'm saying these things because this is not a video about how to form habits or how to communicate better with the people around you. There's a tool about being more powerful and specific in your life that maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't, but you definitely haven't thought about it with regards to this issue. And that term and that phrase for me is personal branding. Now you might be going, how in the fuck are the two things related? I promise I'm gonna tell you. I'm going to break down what a personal brand is and tell you why you actually already have one of your own, whether you realize it or not. Welcome back, I'm Justin Schuman. If I'm new to you, well, hi friend. And if I'm not new to you, I'm glad you're here still. I have been on YouTube, not for the longest time at this point, but I've been on Instagram and TikTok for a while. On TikTok, I've got about 271,000 followers, and I grew my account without niching down and really by refining and honing my personal brand. So what is a personal brand? Look, I am notorious for science-ifying or decoding these complex emotional concepts, but I'm also pretty good at overcomplicating things in the process. So what is the simplest way that I can describe this? If I was to ask you, what do you think a personal brand is? And I taught a class on this in March, and I'm doing another one actually in July. We'll put the link below for the waitlist, called Authenticity Amplified. I asked my class in March on the very first day, what is a personal brand? And we got answers such as recognizability, the version of myself that I am in public, the way that we perceive others, our reputation. Or maybe it's just your point of view. Now, in a way, it is all of these things. It is just the version of you that we have in our heads. Now, me, Justin Schuman, when I talk about personal branding, and I do a lot, I'm sort of referring to real life personal brand, i.e. more of the reputation, and social media personal brand, a little bit more quantifiable, a little bit more tangible. In life, we all have those friends who are like, well, he is just the most amazing baker and he's just so sweet all the time. That's so funny. He bakes and he's sweet. He's just like the best guy. Okay, so that's like kind of who that guy is known for being. That's sort of his reputation, right? So if he was to show up at a party in a really, really terrible mood, his friends would be like, either something awful happened or he's had too much to drink or something, because that is in dissonance with the person we know him to be. So in that way, the personal brand actually does him a favor because his friends are assuming that something else has happened. He's not just showing up and being a dick. However, when the person who we like all sort of know is a little bit of an asshole shows up at the party and is a dick, they don't get an excuse because they are inherently a dick. But on social media, your personal brand is actually a way that we can grow your account. We can make a difference on these platforms without shoving all of your humanity into a box, i.e. niching down. It is really truly honoring your passions, the things that you love, and creating content based on a bedrock of your values, and then figuring out how to tell stories as you. What are the stories you want to tell, and who are you when you show up to tell them? The doing of that again and again and again, the consistent showing up of you consistently ultimately builds your personal brand on social media. At the end of the day, you kind of already have one of these. But let's think of it this way. At the end of your life or after your life, a biography is going to be written, right? Well, I believe it. You're famous to me. So a biography is going to be written. Would you rather that be an autobiography, or would you rather it be a biography, an unauthorized one at that, where somebody just comes in and is like, well, this story that like may or may not be true, also probably kind of was true, but has gotten twisted in the... You definitely want the autobiography because you want to be the person who says, this is my story and this is how I want it told. So if you already have this, if you already have a life story, and there's a version of you in the heads of everyone that you know, why not be an active participant and sit in the director's chair and say, and this is the story I want to be telling and how I want to tell it. That's why I'm such a vehement believer in teaching people about personal branding and how you can make a difference on yours starting today. But back to the intro of the video, maybe you feel like you've been doing life without much purpose. Maybe you feel like you're doing life without much zest or excitement or effectiveness. Like I said before, do you just like go through your days without feeling a sense of direction? Do you feel like you make no difference in the office place? Do you feel like if you raised your voice in a party, no one would hear you? Okay. So what we're talking about is basically sharpening the knife that is your personality and your ability to affect change. So the way that I break down a personal brand, if we're gonna think of it as like a formula, is authenticity plus strategy. Now, I actually don't want you to worry about strategy almost at all for this video because I really just want to go over the basics. Authenticity, though, is this big thing to unpack, and I've done it in other videos, so I'm going to do it pretty briefly here. To me, my definition of when something is authentic, or when someone is authentic, or their actions, their words, what have you, is when they are purposefully chosen. It is that person deciding who they're being and why. Now, that takes a great deal of self-awareness. It takes a great deal of knowing the options you even have available to you. It's like you find a Crayola 64 box and didn't realize, like, oh wow, I don't just have blue, I have azure, which I'm pretty sure is a color of blue, and you have cerulean, like you have options available to you. Now, how do you find those colors? I would argue that you have to really step into this purposeful being of yourself consciously and do the scary thing of being in a revealed way. So there's a little bit of vulnerability, there's a little bit of storytelling. I'm going to assume that you either have seen some of my content and you are good enough with that definition, or that you're gonna drop some comments below and ask me questions, because y'all, I am here for you. I want to make this as perfectly clear as I can. So authenticity, the being of yourself, plus strategy, when we choose to use that being of self to work toward a goal. Now, the goals that I'm typically talking about on social are building an aligned audience or a community, growing on social, period, monetizing anything that you have, whether it is a service or a product or yourself in the form of brand sponsorships. A personal brand, though, especially on social media, is the version of you that lives in the mind of your followers. And the way that personal brand is ultimately built, this sort of climate of your personality, is little bits of weather. So in life, the climate of Florida is humid, it's hot, but that is actually not the weather every single day. Some days it is rainy, some days blindingly sunny, some days it is torrentially downpouring with a hurricane on the side, which, like, God forbid, I hope that's not the case regularly. But the average of all of that weather is the climate. So the average of all of your storytelling, the average of your content pieces on social would make up the climate of your personality, i.e. your personal brand. Now, in what way do I think that this concept, this idea of a personal brand could help you be more impactful in your life? Well, the first thing is that I believe that if you have a personal brand, or you're even cognizant of the idea, you then will take action in your everyday life to make little additions to that vision or that idea that people have of you in their heads. What do I mean? You might just be more conscious of your actions. You might be more aware of how you show up in a space or with a group of people or at an event, not in a way that you're self-conscious, but in a way that stems from having the confidence to show up as who you want to be in that moment. It's you saying, I am taking an active step in contributing facts to this larger story that you are always building about me in your head. Because ultimately, aren't we doing that with everybody around us? We are just meeting people who are ultimately just amalgams and sums of the experiences that we've had with them. Their personal brands to us. So the way that this ultimately increases your effectiveness in life is it's you jumping into the driver's seat, saying, I am no longer in the backseat of one of these frightening autonomous cars that just drive themselves, which I've still never been inside of and like kind of secretly want to, but just like around the block 3 times, because I'm not trying to go on like a cross-country venture in a car that drives itself. Except now I can only think of Herbie Fully Loaded, which I only have as an access point through the Lindsay Lohan reboot, but some of you might know the original, in which case, hi boomer. So once you're in the driver's seat of your life, of your story, you can decide where you want to go with it. You can decide how you want to drive. You can make the active choice how this journey proceeds. So let me break this down so we can round the bend and end this small, slightly confusing, gently obtuse, but a beginning of a conversation that will ultimately help you in the long run. If you don't feel like you make much of a difference in your life, that's okay. A lot of that's probably your own perception of yourself, has to do with insecurities. We've all got them, I get it. But if you're looking for a way to dial in, specify, become this laser-focused you, consider who you're being and how frequently you're even deciding or purposefully choosing who you're being. If that's 0% of the time, then this work will be easy because you can start anywhere. If this is some of the time, I would ask you, then where are the times when you are not choosing? What is that about? Who is the habitual self that you're being? Is it a people pleaser? Are you playing this constructed version of yourself that you've been to make others happy for years and years and years? But then there are some places where you know exactly who you're being and why. So for you, it's a little harder because you need to ask yourself some more questions. Once you've decided that this is what you need to do, where can you jump into the driver's seat? Where can you choose to start showing up? And how can you commit to making that your new habit system? How can you commit to being confidently you whenever, wherever, with whomever, so that we, the people around you, the people who love you, or the people who have never met you before, can form a climate of who you are? Ultimately, if this concept is brand new to you, let's say that it is you taking a more active position as the author of your own reputation. It is you saying, I would like to be known as this, and I'm going to take the steps, make the changes, do the things that would have people then see me and perceive me as such. Now, caveat, we cannot ultimately control how we're perceived by others, but when you think about personal branding, it does give you a voice in the conversation. Now, there is so much more to talk about where personal branding is concerned. I know I touched on social media a little bit. I know I touched on storytelling. We talked about vulnerability. I want to start giving you more of these shorter, value-packed YouTube videos, because I know not everybody always wants to sit and watch me talk about Japan for 25 minutes. I get it, that's a very specific activity. But I wanna show up and create the videos that I know that you want. So when I said comment before, I wasn't kidding. Leave me comments, ask me questions, find me on Instagram, shoot me a DM, let me know what you would like to see here on this channel, because otherwise I'm just going to keep doing me and hope that we meet somewhere in the middle, because that has seemingly worked for me on TikTok, but I don't mean to assume that every single platform and every single audience is the exact same. So let me know what you want. Let me know what you would love to learn. And if this is your very first video of me ever, I'm glad you're here. I hope you'll consider liking, subscribing, clicking, watching other things, I don't really know, all of the options it affords you on YouTube, and finding me on Instagram, TikTok. I'm pretty much all the places at this point. I am omnipresent, and it is very hard to be. And if we do already know each other, I'm glad you're back, and I wanna hear from you too. What do you want more of? I am here, I am ready, and I wanna be churning out more content on this platform because I love it. So, like, subscribe, follow, comment, all the things, and I will talk to you soon.